Hello and welcome to Talking with Famous People. I'm going to share this brief lecture with my students so that they understand the pipeline issues with the viewing audience because I suspect a lot of people don't quite understand them. So there's a big controversy over the transcontinental pipeline that takes oil from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico and it crosses some Indian land in North Dakota. And there was a big protest there and a bunch of leftists went and sat out there and tried to prevent them from building the pipeline, yada, yada, yada. Now, first of all, let me dismiss any notions that the pipeline is bad. The pipeline is absolutely not bad. It's absolutely good. Why? Well, it facilitates the transport of oil over land instead of via oil tankers in the ocean where they're more likely to crash, there's a spill, and it kills all the wildlife, and yada, yada, yada. There's much less likely to be a spill on land for multiple reasons. Namely, the oil is moving, not the pipe, right? That's the problem with shipping oil, is that it's not the oil that's moving, it's the ship. And ships are vehicles, and vehicles crash. So that's the reality, is if you are an environmentalist, you favor the pipeline, you don't oppose it. There's this ridiculous impact that's being stated by people sometimes that if we have the pipeline, then we're going to open up access to the Canadian tar sands, and there's going to be all this extra oil produced that otherwise wouldn't have been produced. That's a lie. It would have been produced anyway. It just would have been transported less efficiently, which would have been more polluting and at a higher risk of crashing. So the pipeline is a good thing for sure. Okay. Now let's talk about fracking. The impact Catherine was trying to draw was that the pipeline allows us to not frack because we can access the tar sands in Canada. Unfortunately, the reality is we're going to continue fracking and have the tar sands. The reality is also that unlike the pipeline, fracking actually is bad. Fracking is terrible. It is environmentally destructive beyond anything that any other methodology of getting oil out. And the reason is because it destroys groundwater by pumping a bunch of fucking chemicals down there, and it ruins people's tap water. If you have a groundwater supply of tap, then forget about it. You don't want fracking going on near you. There ought not be fracking. The pipeline will not prevent fracking, nor will not having the pipeline cause fracking to increase. People will continue to exploit energy sources as long as they remain profitable, and the less supply of oil, the more profitable, high polluting methodologies of oil production are. For example, tar sands is a high polluting way to get oil. Not as bad as fracking, but anywhere close to as bad as fracking, but still a high polluting way of getting oil. Tar sands become cost effective when oil is more expensive. Making oil cheaper by lowering transportation costs makes it less likely they're going to access high cost oil extraction methodologies that have a lower profit margin. And thus, the argument is fallacious entirely that somehow not accessing Canada with a pipeline means not accessing that tar sands. It makes accessing tar sands more likely because not having the pipeline increase oil prices. And thus, do we understand that the pipeline's all good and that none of the impacts of not having the pipeline are actually impacts of not having the pipeline. And the impacts of having the pipeline are actually impacts of having the pipeline. And the thing that's actually is bad is fracking. But the link there is weak, but we'll make it anyway in the argument to say that yes, the pipeline prevents fracking. But I'll tell you right now, it's bullshit. It's a weak argument, but it's a good argument. It's good you can make because there aren't any good arguments on the side that says let's stop the pipeline. There are no good arguments for that side. It's completely all bullshit. Now, you might be able to successfully argue that you ought not infringe upon the sovereignty of the Indians on their land. I tend to agree with that, and I would say the solution is simple. Go around them. But that's a different matter, and it's not of very great importance to anybody except for the Indians themselves and people who are highly principled and say we ought not impose upon Native American sovereignty. I think that's the strongest argument, but it's not the one that has any really measurable impact, so people probably aren't going to make it very much. And that's the long, short, and the truth of the pipeline, fracking, and Indian lands and all that kind of stuff. Thanks for watching Talking with Famous People. I hope you learned something about the environment today. What are the words you'd like to say?
It just reminded me. Evelyn's favorite.
That pen doesn't work very well.
I'm worried.
Pablo.
Oh my lord. Pablo.
Is Pablo some kind of sensual gentleman?
Okay, so during her birthday, she just burst out Pablo, like the American way like Pablo instead of Pablo. And then she started laughing for 10 minutes straight. And when we got to our hotel room, she just
All right, enough. Guys, look, it is now 11:05. Let's run an LD round. Okay, if you want me to run one side of it, fine. But if I'm running one side, I shouldn't run against Caitlin, though. Somebody else should run against Caitlin. Fine. No, Caitlin, you're running. Now, look. Catherine, do you want to help Caitlin? You help Caitlin, okay? Catherine and Caitlin come over, or actually, Evelyn, come over here. Catherine, sit there. You're going to just help her with the mechanics of the round, mostly, okay?
I'm going to BS my whole neg.
Oh, yes, you can be neg. Let her be F. Is the F case put together properly?
Well, I think it's like I don't really understand the one about this analytic, the per mechanism argument. So I didn't know where to put that. But other than that, like, I think it's fine. Like if you put the fire A and fire B with the framework, like at the spike, right? I don't think it should be considered an actual argument within the case. And then like
what should
fire A and fire B, because that's just a spike, right? It's just saying what counts as free speech.
Well,
So
they're observations.
Yeah, okay,
They're ground arguments to define the ground for you. Because look, you might want to they might try to avoid the hate speech thing, and they might try to say like, no, we should negate for some reason other than hate speech. You want to try to bring them back to hate speech and say that the way that colleges are actually restricting free speech in the status quo is by a hate speech style stuff, like liberal stuff, like identity politics shit. And so them trying to come up with some squirrely little thing that
the resolution is talking about we ought not restrict constitutionally protected speech, right?
Right.
Isn't it already like restricting like regular speech? Like,
well, it is in K through 12, yeah. And they're saying we shouldn't apply those kind of rules in college. Okay, Catherine, she's asking me questions, means you need to be there helping her. If you're asking, why are you asking me again which case it is? But Evelyn, I gotta ask you, why is she asking me which case it is?
Hey, Edmund. It's 6. Well, I'm looking through this, and no, we don't. We do not have a bad case. Time for bullshit. What's in my value? Oh wow. Morality.
For neg, your value should be. Your value should be civility. Basically, you're saying you can't have civil debates or deliberation in an environment in which some people are being attacked.
What's VC? VC is like how you're gonna uphold your value, right?
Right. So you uphold the value of civility by limiting ontological violence in the university setting. That's a good VC. In the university setting, in the public university setting.
I can argue like.
It's for.
I can argue like racism and sexism and like ableism, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could.
I have a case on that.
For sure.
And then like say.
Here.
Because oh yeah, I can't thanks. Okay.
It's like
Okay, so look at the cases, look at the cards, and then like group them into. Okay, these are the contenders, the bolded. Should I make the racism, sexism, and ableism like all into separate arguments or group them into one?
You should make them separate.
Okay, these are cards I assume for your value, and then labels. Strauss, there's no labels.
I told you guys to finish that. What you were supposed to do, Caitlin, you don't do anything. There's a specific enough. Fucking put them in order and number them. Try. Do it badly if you want to, but do it.
Let's open it in order first.
All right, well, that's what needs to be done right now. Let Evelyn take your time, put together your name case. You guys rearrange that one and put numbers on them. Yeah, demo some, make her do one, and then if she's going too slow, help her more or whatever, you know. Just get it. We're probably not going to get in a full round, but we'll get one started. Well, maybe we won't get it started. I don't know. But we'll get that done. If we don't get that done, that's good enough.
In LD, you need to get like rebuttals against Yak in your first speech. Right?
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's the one in C and the one in R is combined.
Wait, does it? In the app case, I saw this argument that said, like, universities don't even have the power to restrict it anyway. I think. Right?
Well, they don't, but they don't have their rules don't withstand constitutional scrutiny, and so when they get challenged in court, they typically lose the university. But they keep trying anyway. And you want to point out this is a normative question. It's not whether or not the Supreme Court does currently support university restrictions. It's whether they ought to. Okay, so it doesn't matter what the status quo is. If it's true that the universities don't have the power in the status quo to do that, then if you're arguing in favor of the restrictions, you're arguing they should have that power.
So this is just like a card pack, right?
No, those are the cards I would like to have in the case, but they're in the wrong order.
Wait, on this topic, I saw this thing like free speech. Like there was this race critique, and it said like if offensive free speech is not like really free speech because the creators of free speech are like benefit the white people. Okay, so this one is
Well, I mean, you argue that by saying this is the most racist argument I've ever heard in my life. It assumes that black people cannot speak well enough to convince anybody of anything. It assumes that rhetoric, in fact, does not have any objective basis whatsoever when it does. You know, it's like if I say free speech is how we hold people to account for their wrongness as well as for their rightness. Just because the status quo has both free speech and white people are better off than black people doesn't mean that white people are better off than black people because of free speech. It's not free speech that is causing black people to be oppressed.
Okay, so this means this is a contention. So when you look at all those cards, you see the different ideas they have, and when you group them into contentions, you know that they have the same main idea. So those are extensions. So look at these and then figure out which cards have the same main idea, basically.
So look, you start with anything that's ground or framework, okay? That means get the cards that say, or definitional cards, the fire cards, put them at the top in the framework. Okay, what else is in there? Read me through it and I'll tell you which framework and what's what.
Wait.
Fire and status quo.